It had been years since I'd last set foot on my family's land. My father was never an easy man to get along with, but I knew how much this hunt meant to him. I had no idea what was waiting for us in those cold woods. No idea that my life was about to change forever.
We found our new campsite in a high clearing surrounded by virgin forest. The woods around here are filled with deer and elk, maybe even wolves. I've never seen such beautiful country. Mark tells me the land we camped on belongs to Samson Rainsford. Well, Rainsford is something of a legend in these parts. An old-school mountain man who spent half his life hunting big game in Africa.
The men of my family had hunted in those woods for 200 years. We never imagined that forest might be home to predators even more dangerous than ourselves.
The wolves were howling again last night. They sounded closer this time. Mark assures me we have nothing to worry about. Still, I didn't get a wink of sleep. Something about that sound gives me the creeps. We heard a new sound last night. A strange, high-pitched noise like a whistle. Mark said it was just a bird, but I'm pretty sure he's lying. I'm starting to wonder if we're alone out here. The wolves came into our camp last night. I could hear them whining and growling right outside my tent. This place isn't safe anymore. We've decided to break camp at first light. I've lost everyone. It's dark, and I have no idea where I am. I should have stayed behind to help the others, but when I heard the screams, I panicked. I keep hearing that whistle. Someone must be nearby. Maybe they'll help me. I need to get back to the camp and find my friends.
I ran towards the sound of the wounded bear, fearing that the grizzly would find my brother before I could stop it. But I was wrong about who was hunting who. 10 years passed. My father and I hardly spoke, neither of us willing to forgive the other or ourselves for Adrian's death. My father retired to live in seclusion on his private game reserve in Uganda, while I made a name for myself as a professional hunter. After 10 years without a word, my father reached out to me. Soon we would hunt together again. Not for sport this time, but for redemption.
Dr. Bauer and I have not yet been able to identify the predator species responsible for the recent attacks. The physical evidence is sketchy at best, and the few eyewitness accounts we've heard stretch the limits of credibility. Dr. Bauer is not prepared to rule out the possibility that a pride of lions are responsible for the recent attacks. However, the invasion of inhabited homes suggests a level of habituation rarely found among big cats. One of the most troubling aspects of this case concerns the ineffectiveness of traps and poisons against these mysterious predators. It's as though these animals have learned to recognize and avoid such traps by sight.
For the first time since the day Adrian died, I was no longer certain of my own place at the top of the food chain. I knew then how my ancestors must have felt, struggling to survive in a hostile wilderness where the hunter is both predator and prey.
I helped to bury another family this morning. The local villagers are on the verge of rioting. They say that if the government cannot protect them, then they will protect themselves. I fear what will happen if these beasts are not found soon. Today, I stopped the villagers from attacking a woman. They said the woman was a witch, and that she had summoned a dark creature called the Kafdar to prey upon them. I remember my grandfather speaking of the Kafdar when I was a child. Last night I saw these creatures with my own eyes. They came from the savannah like shadows in the dark. Before I could fire, I heard a strange whistling sound and the beasts fled as one. The villagers are right. Evil forces are at work here.
The flames washed across the savannah like a tidal wave, driving the herds into a massive stampede. We heard the buffalo coming long before we could see them. An avalanche of clashing horns and thundering hooves. The rhino hit like a runaway train, 2,000 pounds of bone and armored muscle. The raging flames had driven the beast mad. I knew nothing short of my own death would quench the fury in the rhino's heart. When I came to my senses, night had fallen and Mbeki was gone. The savannah burned all around me, painting the night sky crimson and gold. But the heat of those flames paled in comparison to the fire burning inside me as I set out on Mbeki's trail.
I have enlisted the help of a master hunter, an American named Samson Rainsford, who lives not far from here. I told Rainsford of the Cathar. To my great surprise, he believed me. Rainsford said he had hunted this creature before, and would do so again. I gathered the village men and told them to bring their trucks to the petrol station. My grandfather said only fire can destroy the Cathar. The destruction will be terrible, but we have no choice. We must act now, before we are all dead.
I could now see the lights of my father's hunting lodge glowing in the distance, looking down on me like the eyes of some nocturnal predator. An icy dread crept through my guts as I entered the forest and came upon the ruins of an abandoned military camp. The soldiers were long gone, but as I would soon discover, a new army had emerged from the jungle to take their place.
They call it the Nightfall Program, a covert research project. They say they're here to study animal behavior modification, breeding, training, chemical conditioning. They're making monsters, living weapons on a leash. They're hiring professional hunters to capture rare specimens for study. And Becky and I have signed on to bag the Cathar. That's what they call it anyway. Locals say it's some kind of demon. As far as I can tell, we're hunting a new breed of hyena. Smarter, bigger than usual, but an animal just the same. We had no idea what was waiting for us in that cave. After that, the program went off the rails. The research staff lost control. People started dying. They called in soldiers, but it was already too late. Becky and I are pulling out tonight. We won't be coming back.
As I stepped into the yawning mouth of the cave, I heard a sound like the laughter of devils echoing in the bowels of hell. I could feel eyes watching me from the darkness, though whether it was my father's gaze I felt, or the eyes of the beast, I will never know.
The captured specimen has been called Crocuta cryptidae, though we still don't know whether we are dealing with a unique aberration or a new species of hyena. Dr. Alpert says he plans to use a new technology called DNA sequencing to identify the species. This sounds like science fiction to me. The cave paintings the hunters discovered suggest the Cathar species has inhabited this area for hundreds, perhaps thousands of years. Dr. Alpert has ordered the destruction of all research materials related to the Nightfall program. I can't bear the thought of all of our work being erased. I've arranged for one of the hunters, an American named Rainsford, to smuggle some of my files out of the country. With that data, I should be able to resurrect the program at a later date.
I stepped through the trapdoor and emerged in the hall of my father's house. In that moment, I felt a strange mixture of horror and relief. My worst fears had been realized, but I knew then that I had finally reached the end of my journey. One way or another, the nightmare would soon be over.